My name is Rick Milne. I'm the mayor in the village of Honeoye Falls, and I want to welcome you to this Zoom meeting tonight. The village of Honeoye Falls has been contemplating, discussing, and studying the opportunity to consider a community choice aggregation process where the village residents would be able to obtain their electric energy through a community choice program. And we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about solar energy and just the whole process in itself. I just want to make it clear that the village board has talked about this for almost 3 years now. And we wanted to go through the process of learning a little bit about community choice aggregation, about clean energy and the options that are out there. And we believe we've done our due diligence, and we believe we are coming to a very positive path forward. And to that end, we are going to hear from the folks at Rocktricity tonight, talking about the program that we're beginning here in the village of Honeoye Falls. So I want to thank you all for listening in and for any questions that you provide. And I also want to thank the people from Rocktricity, a great team of folks who are helping us through this process. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to the Rocktricity team.
Great, thank you, Mayor Milne. I'm just going to start here by sharing the screen. We've got some PowerPoint slides that I think will help us to step through some key points. So first of all, we're on a Zoom meeting. I rather suspect that most attendees are familiar with Zoom by now, by this stage, but in case you're not, this is a Zoom webinar. And so your microphone and camera will be off during the presentation. And we'll have some opportunities to ask questions, and you'll see that come up in the slide presentation. And when that happens, the way we want to address that is using the Q&A feature. And just in case you're not familiar, at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see a little menu bar, or you may have to move your cursor down toward the bottom to get that menu bar to pop up. But there's a Q&A feature in that menu bar, and if you open that, you'll have there's a place you can type questions in. So when we get to the Q&A stops in the presentation, feel free to, well, we'll talk about a few frequently asked questions, but then feel free to type your questions in, and we'll do our very best to address them. Again, we're talking about some clean energy programs, choices that the village of Honeoye Falls is pursuing, and we'll talk about how those programs work. My name is Ben Freevert, and I'm with the company Rocktricity. You see our logo near the bottom there. And I'm joined this evening by Sue Hughes-Smith, also at Rocktricity. And there are two other partners at Rocktricity, Melissa Carlson and Margie Pete. And so there are four of us that make up Rocktricity, and we're local to the greater Rochester area. I'm actually much closer to Honeoye Falls. I have a Honeoye Falls mailing address, but I live in West Bloomfield. So we're local to the area. We are partnered with Jewel Community Power. They really are doing the work to interact with the electricity supply market players, the Public Service Commission, and National Grid. So we're working very closely with them, and they do some very important work for these programs that we're going to talk about. Again, there's a couple of different things we're going to talk about: community solar and community choice aggregation. But these programs and the Honeoye Falls effort are really being conducted under the moniker Finger Lakes Community Choice. And that's really just a name and website that we've set up to try to convey information out to the public about how the programs work and what the status of implementation is and that kind of thing. And if you visit that website, you may well notice that there are some other communities involved too. That's the notion of aggregating several communities together to make the programs work well for several municipalities at the same time. So again, two programs, community choice aggregation and community solar, and I'm going to point that out. We're going to point that out a number of times, that there are really two programs here. And part of the reason for that is that it might be easy to confuse some of the features of the two programs. But it's kind of important to know that there are two and that they are a little bit different. But both programs work together really to reduce carbon emissions and reduce electricity costs for consumers and putting some consumer protections in place. So those things are all very important. So we'll mention the fact that there are these two programs a number of times. So what we're going to talk about is what community choice aggregation really is, what community solar is, a bit about the relationship between the two and why we're working to combine them, why we're trying to do that now, why now is really the time to be doing that, and what some of the next steps are, really what the next things that you might see as residents of Honeoye Falls. But before I dive into that, I'm going to just take a little bit of a step back. One of the things we've found as we have presented these programs in different municipalities is that sometimes people are not as familiar with how the electricity gets to our house and when we pay our bill, what's really happening there and what the components on the bill are. So I'm just going to take a quick step back and talk a little bit about some of that. So first of all, without community choice aggregation in place, the companies and facilities that generate electricity put that electricity onto the grid, and the utilities, in this case, National Grid manages the distribution network that gets the electricity to our homes and businesses. So they're maintaining all those wires and poles and transformers and things like that. And that's how the electricity gets to our houses. And then of course we have to pay our bill. And when we do pay the bill, there really are two parts to that. There's the supply part and the delivery part. And the delivery part, that goes to the utility. That's the utilities to cover their costs and their profit. That's what the delivery part is. The supply part really is paying for the electricity itself. And while we pay that to the utility remits that on up the line to the folks who generate the electricity and the brokers in between. So that's important to note. And you'll see that on your bill because this is an example of a bill. And what you see on your bill is you'll see it broken down into delivery services and supply services. Again, the delivery services, that's really what we're paying National Grid to make sure the power's on and to respond when the power goes out. The supply services, that's where we're paying for the electricity. And you can see on this bill that the supplier is National Grid. So if you don't make a choice about who the supplier is, the default is the utility. But you can choose to have a different supplier. And community choice aggregation really is just impacting the supply part by making a choice, changing who that default supplier is from National Grid to a supplier that we have yet to choose and identify based on a competitive bidding process that is coming in future. So with that, we can look back at this diagram again and then put it all together, the electricity being delivered to our houses and paying the utility for both supply and delivery. So this is what it looks like without community choice aggregation. And I'm going to come back to this diagram in just a minute and show you how that changes when we put community choice aggregation in place. But first, let's get to this point about what community choice aggregation is. This is an electricity supply procurement program. So it's going out and purchasing the supply part again for homes and businesses in the community. The goal here is to aggregate many customers in order to negotiate with potential suppliers for price, the term, that it be a fixed rate, and the source. And here we're focusing on 100% renewably generated electricity as the source. The program is opt-out for residential and small business customers. That means that you're in the program unless you take action to opt out. Now, you'll see a note there too. This does not apply if you've already made a choice and selected a third-party supplier that's different from your utility, from National Grid. The program's really aimed at people who have not taken a choice and they're just using the default supplier. And what it does is it changes who that default supplier is by allowing the local government to make that selection of the default supplier as opposed to the state making that selection, that'd be the utility. And it shifts the community to using renewably generated electricity. And that's really, from a state level, the State Public Service Commission that put the program in place, that's really one of the primary goals. So I said I'd come back to this diagram and show you how this changes with community choice aggregation. So you'll notice as we put add community choice aggregation to this, that the traditional generation mix shrinks. So this is, I'm talking about the energy that goes onto the grid. We can have an impact on shrinking, in particular, that part of the traditional mix that is generated by fossil fuels. And in its place, we can put more renewables onto the grid. And this adds also a couple of additional, potentially additional players. The supply brokers might be the same, they might be different. And of course, it puts an administration for the program component in place. I guess the other thing I'd really like to point out here is that the utilities job in all this doesn't change. The utilities still right there in the middle, and they are still maintaining all the infrastructure that gets the power to our homes and businesses. And they're still responsible if there's a power outage. They're still who we call if the power goes out, and they're responsible for repairs and maintaining power to our homes and businesses. One last time, this program, CCA, really only affects the supply services. So it doesn't affect the delivery at all. And if you track your electric bill closely, you'll notice that the electricity supply rates that we pay vary from month to month. One of the things that CCA is aimed at doing is fixing that and making it a fixed rate. So what are the benefits of doing this? Why would we do this? Well, as I mentioned, it enables local control of selection of the default supplier. It provides access to more affordably priced renewable energy. Some people want to move to renewably generated electricity, but if you go out and do this on your own and try to choose an ESCO that sells renewably generated electricity on your own, you'll pay more. The rates are higher if you do this on your own. It also reduces price volatility. As I mentioned, the RG&E rate goes up and down, as you see in the chart there, but the CCA rate is a fixed rate. The longer term contract, the aim there is for a 2-year contract. We anticipate that overall, over the course of the contract, the 2 years, that CCA rate will be lower than the average of the utility rate. We don't know that for sure because we don't know what those ups and downs are going to look like in the future. So we can't guarantee that, but we feel strongly that the CCA rate will be lower. And again, it can accelerate a transition to renewable energy, which we think is good. So that's really the gist of community choice aggregation. But first, I want to cover a few frequently asked questions that we get, and then we'll come back to questions from any attendees there. What are my options if I don't want to participate in the program? So you don't have to participate in the program. And as I mentioned, if you've already made a selection to a third-party supplier, you don't have to do anything. But if you have National Grid as your supplier and you don't want to participate in the program, then you can simply opt out. And our goal is to make that really as easy as possible. You can visit the Finger Lakes Community Choice website and you can opt out there. You can, or you can call us at Rocktricity, and we'll put up some information at the end about how to do that. You can call us or get in touch with us by email as well. If you get in touch with us and express an interest to opt out, we'll do everything we can to help make that happen. Can I opt in if I already have a third-party supplier? So I mentioned that you wouldn't be automatically in the program if you have a third-party supplier, but if you decide you want to opt in, you can do that. You want to make sure that your current third-party contract either doesn't have any penalties or you're comfortable with them. Sometimes those third-party contracts have a penalty for leaving the contract. So you want to make sure you understand that very well. But if you do that and you want to opt in, you can call us or visit the website and actually opt into the program. What if there's not enough renewable renewably generated electricity to meet the needs of all the communities that might implement this. Well, that risk really is borne by the supplier that we choose. So there's a possibility that that the suppliers out there now are already anticipating that, and we won't be able to get a good price. And if we don't, then the program doesn't, the CCA component of the program won't move forward. We'll only move forward if there's a good price there, and then that risk is really borne by the ESCO. However, I will say that if that begins to become a problem, that sends a strong signal to the market to build more renewably generated electricity. So we think that's a good thing too, because again, the greenhouse gas emissions is a key for us. This is a question that we get quite frequently. By what authority can municipal governments make this decision without the explicit acceptance of customers? So this may be one of the most common questions we get. How can you switch me to a different supplier? And this really comes from the state policy. So the state and the Public Service Commission have put the program in place in this fashion, so that municipalities that choose to can adopt the program, and that's what has happened with the village of Honeoye Falls, as well as many other municipalities in the area. And I don't think the village of Honeoye Falls would have done this, and other municipalities wouldn't have done this if there wasn't a ready and easy way for customers that want to opt out can. So that's really where that comes from, and how that works. We could certainly talk more about that if necessary. But with that, we'll see if there are any questions from attendees.
So there's just one question, Ben, at this point, and that is, what are the boundaries that define the village of Honeoye Falls? And I don't happen to know that.
Well, yeah, and I can't tell you exactly where those boundaries are. Maybe Mayor Millen is familiar enough with them to say that, but I will say that one way to know is where you pay your local taxes. So if your local taxes are going to, for example, let's make sure I'm getting this right, the town of Mendon, or the town of West Bloomfield, which is where I live, or what's the town to the south of you, Mayor?
Lima.
Lima.
So if you pay your taxes to one of those towns, then you're probably not in the village of Honeoye Falls. But if your taxes go to the village, then you're very likely within the bounds of the village.
So we will have to, Ben, if I may, we will have to, that's a great question, Gail. And if we can get your name and address, we'll certainly make sure we get you those boundaries. Because again, most of our residents, Ben, do pay their taxes, village, town, and school and county taxes to the town of Mendon.
Mm.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I think Gail's question is very good. That I know where the boundaries are, but to name the roads and where those boundaries are right off the top, I can't do that right now. But we'll get you that answer. But this is for the village of Honeoye Falls, not the residents outside the village at this point in time. As I understand it, because I believe the town of Mendon may be considering this in the future as well. I think they've been doing some looks at this as well.
Yeah. Is there perchance a village boundary map on the village's website?
There is.
Oh.
So that would be a good place to go. But maybe one of my action items can certainly be to follow up on tonight's meeting, and also preparing for the second meeting that we're going to have, doing the same thing. And we can get that on our Facebook page, on our website, et cetera, so that we'll be able to easier answer that question.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Another question. Oh, sorry, Ben.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So customers that produce a portion of their own electricity via solar panels receive a credit for power they feed into the grid. Will the amount of the credit be affected by this program?
So yeah, that's a question we want to answer very carefully, because community choice aggregation will not affect will not affect how your net metering with rooftop solar works. So your net metering program won't be impacted at all by community choice aggregation. Now, the reason I'm being careful about that is that Sue's going to talk about community solar in a minute, and that there is a difference there. You can't do both, but we'll elaborate on that just a little bit. So that looks like the end of the questions for now. So we will have another opportunity for questions. So if you have a question but you haven't quite typed it in or thought of what it is exactly, you'll have another chance. And so I'll move forward and come back to this slide, noting again that there are two programs. And so I've just talked a little bit about community choice aggregation, and I'm going to turn it over to Sue now to talk about community solar.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. So the Community Solar Program has some similar benefits in delivering savings and reducing reliability or our need for fossil fuels. So community solar are local solar power plants. They are the smaller sized ones, typically 2 to 5 megawatts. So they're small fields of solar panels. And these solar plants produce electricity that goes onto the grid, and the solar developer sells solar savings or credits that then go onto the customer's bills. This part of the program does deliver guaranteed savings. So that's a really great feature of community solar. We have guaranteed savings. The savings range between 5 and 10%. So we really like to aim for the 10%. That's always our goal. But because you can't predict how much sunshine is going to be made every month and how much electricity you're going to use every month, we don't want to, over explain or over guarantee the savings. So typically for the typical customer, it's 5 to 10% with that goal of 10%. The community solar programs support local solar and local economic development. And it demonstrates your community's support for renewable energy when you move forward with implementing this type of program. Now, John, who just asked the question, it's important to note that if you have solar panels on your roof, and that's being net credited, you probably had some state incentive when you put those solar panels on your roof, and as a result, you are not eligible to participate in community solar, okay? So you can do the first program that Ben was talking about, community choice aggregation, or the supply part, and you can do community solar, but if you have solar panels, then you can just do the first part that Ben was talking about. Okay, and we can come back to that again because that may not have sounded as clear as it could have. So the community choice aggregation authority, if we use that mechanism with community solar, it is a great advantage because it means that now the village could just allow everyone who's eligible to participate and get that solar savings without anyone having to sign a separate contract or make some separate payment arrangement. It simplifies and improves access to this program. And that's why the opt-out treatment is a really exciting feature that is available in National Grid territory and is one of the main reasons that your village is moving forward with this program. So the village has endorsed the program. That lends a lot of validity in the minds of all of you, I know, because you have confidence in your local government. And another advantage is that a sustainability fund will get created for each customer that is enrolled in the program. $50 will go into this fund and the village will be able to use it for a sustainability project of their own creation. And we look forward to hearing some ideas that the village may have for that down the road. Okay, so you have the opportunity, Honeoye Falls, to be a part of a first in the nation clean energy program. This opt-out treatment for community solar hasn't been done anywhere else, nowhere else in New York, nowhere else in the country. This is a first of its kind. So it's really exciting. You're joining Brockport and the Village Brockport and the Village of Lima in implementing this unique, we hope really game-changing program. So why this is happening now and not like 3 years ago when you all started thinking about the program is because there have been new rules placed on the utilities that require them to put all the solar information onto the utility bill. Okay, so previously, some of you may have heard about community solar, and there have been solar companies trying to get people to individually subscribe, and that had required, you know, a separate contract, a separate payment, credit checks, and all of that made moving solar energy forward more complicated and more difficult. So right now, National Grid is prepared to take all that information and put it right onto your utility bill. And therefore, we can eliminate all those extra steps. So that's called consolidated billing in the form of net metering or net crediting, excuse me. Okay, so National Grid is ready to move forward with that, and that's why this first of its kind project is underway in Lima, Brockport, and Honeoye Falls. In addition, NYSERDA is planning to come out with new funding, and in order to access that funding, the village will need to qualify, and they can qualify by meeting certain, certain benchmarks. And we are told that opt-out community solar will be one of those highly valued choices. So it will put you on track for accessing additional funding through NYSERDA. Okay, so questions about community solar. We have some frequently asked questions. Ben, I'm going to ask you, will I get 2 bills if I participate in this opt-out community solar program?
No. So with the more traditional community solar programs that you mentioned a minute ago, yes, those customers do get 2 bills with those programs. But that's one of the beauties of this this arrangement is that consolidated billing that you mentioned means that customers get just 1 bill.
Great. So how long would a customer be obligated to participate if they don't opt out at first?
So customers can opt out at any time with no fee. So there's no obligation to stay in it more than a month. There's no obligation to stay in it more than a year, but you can stay in it for a very long time. Typically, the arrangements for the solar fields to remain in place typically are targeting 25 years. So that's a pretty long time frame if you wanted to stay in the whole time.
So that sounds like if I had just moved into Honeoye Falls and this program starts, I could potentially for 20, 25 years get savings every month on my utility bill for really having done nothing for the board and the mayor having moved this program forward.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Will I be enrolled in community solar if I've chosen my own third-party supplier or ESCO?
Yeah, so this kind of relates back to the earlier discussion about CCA, and this is one of the points that can be confusing. If you've selected a third-party supplier, while you can't be in the previous program we talked about, community choice aggregation, this program you can. So you can be in community solar and have a third-party supplier, and you'll get the full benefits if your third-party supplier is saving you money, or if it's 100% renewable. None of that changes. You still gain all of the benefits from that relationship, and you get you get a reduction in the overall bill because of participation in community solar.
Great. What if I have solar at my home or business? And I think like if I have solar panels on my home.
Yeah, this I think is really the question you had just addressed, and yeah, you can't participate in both. You can't have more than one net metering arrangement in place at a time. So that's a state level restriction. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So any given month, like in the summer, these solar fields are creating a lot of energy. So I'm going to get a lot of credits. What if those credits, are more than I could possibly use that month? What happens?
Yeah, so then the credits carry over, the credits that are unused for that month, they carry over to the next month. And they'll carry over month after month indefinitely until they get used. So then we get into the winter maybe, and you might be using a little more electricity because the days are shorter. But the solar is not generating nearly as much energy. And so you won't see as many credits accumulating per month for that reason. So that's a good time to be using up those credits. And that's typically what customers see.
So that 10% savings is an annual savings. And each month it's a different amount that's saved because of how much energy is produced. And then when
That's
there's
right.
a lot of energy, it's in like kind of a savings account. And is that going to show on my utility bill?
Yes, you'll be able to see all that on your utility bill. Yeah, and you're right, the amount of savings, the percentage of savings, the total dollar figure of savings, or however you want to look at it, that will vary from month to month. Again, it's because we all use a little different amount of electricity each month. And of course, the solar generates a different amount of electricity each month.
Great. What if I start this program and then I move? Does that opportunity to save through the solar program move with me or stay with my house?
So it stays with the account. So if you close your account when you move, which most people do, you close your account when you move, then you're discontinued in your participation from the program. However, if you move just across the village and you remain in the village of Honeoye Falls, you could take an action to sign up again at your new address. So you can, customers who aren't in at the beginning can take an action to sign up later if they want to. Incidentally, if you decide you're not interested and you opt out of the program, and then later when your neighbors tell you how great it is and how much they're saving, you change your mind, you can opt in, you can opt back in later to no fee, no penalties of any kind.
Right, but it sounds like, why would I want to opt out? I'm going to have nothing, no extra bill. I'm just going to have savings appear on my national grid bill.
Yeah, and actually, that is a question that we get sometimes about. People are skeptical. What's the catch? There isn't a catch. Some people, once they fully understand it, particularly in the village of Lima, one of the village board members there used the phrase, "It's a no-brainer," and I think he hit the nail on the head there.
Okay.
So. Yeah, I don't see any questions in the Q&A. I don't know if anybody out there has any questions still, but if you do, be sure to type them in there, and we've got a few more slides here so we can keep an eye on that Q&A panel. But I don't know if you want to close this out, Sue?
Sure, right. So just to review briefly, so the Finger Lakes Community Choice Program is just a name. It's just kind of a marketing tool. It's the website location where you and Brockport and Lima and quite frankly the town of Geneva all can find the information about their renewable clean energy programs. Okay, so Finger Lakes Community Choice. The next steps that are going to be occurring. So Brockport and Lima, you're going to be joining them in the implementation of this particular opt-out community solar program. We will also pursue that supply price and we'll see what the marketplace can deliver. So you may get the opportunity to participate in 2 programs or 1 program. That information we will convey to you when we have it. So there's a public meeting today, obviously, and there's one in February that is the same information. Then we go to the next step where we see what the supply market is like, contracts get finalized with the solar developers, and then you will get a letter in the mail And when you get a letter in the mail, it will absolutely have the Village of Honeoye Falls letterhead. It will be signed by the mayor, so you will know you have gotten the right letter because it is on your village letterhead, okay? And Jewel and Rocktricity will make sure that that gets mailed out. No cost to the village, just to be clear, but it will be the village letterhead. And that will then trigger more meetings. So we'll have more meetings like this to review the information. You'll be able to decide, do you want to participate in one program, both programs, if both programs are available. If you follow social media, please do like the Finger Lakes Community Choice Facebook page or Instagram page. We do put updates on those sites. And then they're also, once the program is launching, is going live, then National Grid begins to send you also communications. And that'll be a whole nother exciting conversation that we can have at that time. So you may also, I can't see all of this blurb here. Customers will begin seeing saving and net crediting later in 2021. So obviously there's requirements from the Public Service Commission, and we have to move through those steps in a judicious manner. And so we will keep you updated about the precise start of the program as those steps get completed, okay? Sometimes, we do want to alert you that what we've seen happen is when communities launch programs, other supply companies, other ESCOs notice, and they begin to send extra advertising to you. And so people then call us and ask us, want to double check, is this the right program? Is this a different program? So we just want to alert you to that. And we'll have, again, social media and other communication to you so that we can hopefully keep that any confusion to a minimum. Okay, we want to be as clear and transparent as possible.
Yeah, and one of the reasons we like to make that point is that sometimes some of those other mailings look very much like, they use some of the same language and use some of the same wording. So you want to be very careful there. The letter you'll see come out officially will be on village letterhead. And
there is a website, right? fingerlakescommunitychoice.com. You can always go there to check up on what's happening. When there is a contract final for all these programs, the names of the companies involved will also be at that website. So you'll be able to verify in a couple different ways, okay? But if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can use the email info@fingerlakescommunitychoice.com. You can call us directly at 585-244-0244. That's Rocktricity's number. So you get Ben or I or Margie or Melissa. If you call that number, we're happy to chat with you.
And you can always visit our website at rocktricity.com to learn a little bit more about the programs in general and about us and what we're up to. So Mayor Milne, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add to close things out, but I'll just put this slide up, I guess, with the fingerlakescommunitychoice.com website so people can remember that.
Well, thanks, Ben. First of all, I want to thank you all for not only attending, but also presenting. I think this was very informative, and we're looking forward to moving this whole program forward. Certainly on our Facebook page and on our website as well, we'll make sure that all of Rocktricity's information will be there, and also the fingerlakescommunitychoice.com. So we'll make sure that that's out there. I did answer Gail's question for her address. That is outside of our village proper. So at this point in time, unfortunately, it's not part of the program, but I will, again, as I said, I will take an action item to make sure we put a map of the village boundaries clearly alongside the Rocktricity information for this program on our Facebook page and website. So we'll get that done in the next few days. But thank you very much.
Great. Well, thanks for having us this evening. Ben, you want to
Nope, I've got nothing else to add, except also thank you, Mayor, and thanks to all the attendees that participated and listened and asked some good questions. And let your neighbors know that we'll be doing this again in February. So if they have questions and want to take in the presentation, we'll be doing it again.
Yeah, please, and if I may, and I'm sorry, thank you. Do please pass this information along. As Ben just said, let your friends know, because you know there's a lot of other communities around that may be looking at this, or that may be having some discussions. The more people, the more of our residents that talk it up or ask questions, the more legs it gets. It's like any other program.
Yeah.
So, you know, please don't hesitate to pass this information along.
Yeah, and if you do pass it along, you can point people to the Finger Lakes Community Choice Facebook page, and they can watch this very presentation because it's being live streamed there right now, and that recording will be available on the Facebook page. Okay, well, with that, we'll close it out. Thank you very much again, Mayor Milne, and to the attendees, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.